For those of you that are not yet familiar, as Robert mentioned, we were founded way back in 1919, and we were founded by some of the same civic participants, civil servants, artists, and scientists that also founded America's National Park Service. So we were founded just a few years later, and we are now celebrating our 101st year of existence as a nonprofit, nationwide, nonpartisan organization. So I wanted to start off by just sharing this quote that I think really unites so many people, and it's from Franklin Roosevelt. And he said that there's nothing so American as our national parks. The fundamental idea behind the parks is that the country belongs to the people, that it's in the process of making for the enrichment of the lives of all of us. And that's the end of the quote. And so when President Roosevelt shared that, NPCA, our organization, was but 15 years into its existence as an organization. And our work today, in its essence, remains the same, in the same spirit as it did when we started this work 101 years ago. And that is to protect and enhance America's park system and surrounding ecosystems for present and future generations. And so one more historical image here, going back some years after founding, that harkens to our long-term investment in the area of Miami-Dade County. So this image was taken back when Everglades National Park was formally established in 1947. And before that, indeed, NPCA was one of the main advocacy organizations that was working to push for that formal establishment of Everglades National Park. And today, our work continues in terms of focusing on protecting and restoring and defending America's national parks. And here in the Suncoast region, which I lead up, we focus a great deal of our work in Florida. My hometown is Miami, Florida, and I recently moved back to Miami. I lived abroad for many years, and I am so thrilled to be back, home sweet home. I moved back several years ago, and I'm really invested in the work that we do, not only because I'm from South Florida and know how critical the ecosystem is to our livelihood, to our economy, to bringing new diverse people to this great part of the world, but also because it's really integral to our life. Without the Everglades ecosystem, we would not have our drinking water supplies. Without the Everglades ecosystem, we wouldn't have such clean air. We wouldn't have the resilience that we do have in the face of our changing climate. So some of the work that we focus on in our region of NPCA, which is one of 11 regions nationwide. We are spread across the country, and we also have a mothership, or our headquarters, based in Washington, D.C. So some of the work that we focus on in our region is listed here on your screen. And first off, we look at all of the work that we do to protect and enhance parks through what we call a climate lens. And that is because we recognize that climate change is indeed the most significant threat that our national parks and ecosystems, and indeed our communities, are really facing. Next, a core priority program for our region is focusing on restoring and conserving the entire greater Everglades ecosystem, which I just talked about some of the importance that we see in that ecosystem and why that's a priority for us. And next, we also have a strong emphasis on marine and coastal protection work. The last areas that we focus on in our region are wildlife and endangered species conservation. And layered across all of this work is an emphasis on diversifying partnerships with community groups and other local organizations so that we can create mutual synergies, spread the reach of our work, and also learn about the great work that others are doing that is aligned with this work. So now I'm going to dive in and go sort of lightning speed across several of these program areas that I just mentioned. And the first was climate change. So as I mentioned, we really emphasize viewing all of our work through a climate lens. And in order to do so effectively and cohesively with such a massive scale problem, we first took a step back to assess how climate change is most affecting national parks in Florida. And so on the screen here, this is an image of a climate change report that we did recently that was a result of that assessment. So through this report, we were able to identify concrete impacts of climate change upon our national parks, and then identify some of the best ways, most pragmatic and most impactful ways that we can mitigate those climate change impacts in our parks. Next up, we work to conserve and restore the greater Everglades ecosystem. And NPCA, as I mentioned when I started, we have been focusing on the Everglades nearly since our organization was established 101 years ago. And today, much of the work that we do focuses not only on restoring the greater Everglades ecosystem, but also on working to conserve and defend the landscape. So I'll now give you a brief overview of our latest efforts that focus in the greater Everglades ecosystem. And those efforts focus on advancing Everglades restoration projects. Now, for those that have not yet heard about Everglades restoration or wondering what that is, well, back in 2000, Congress authorized what was called the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, or CERP. CERP. And today, we work hard to advance the projects identified through that Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan in order to restore the system. And close to home here in Miami, one of those key projects is called the Biscayne Bay and Southeastern Everglades Ecosystem Restoration Project. I know it's a mouthful. The acronym is BBSEER, BBSEER. Sorry, lots of acronym soup in the world of Everglades restoration. And that project works to advance and increase the volume of clean water that will flow both into Florida Bay and Biscayne Bay. So that's one of the key projects that we are helping to advance through Everglades restoration. And one of the ways that we do that work is of advancing Everglades restoration is through advocacy and through providing advocacy opportunities to community members that also want to advocate for protecting and restoring our national parks. So this image that you're seeing here is an image that we took online last summer of a virtual congressional roundtable. This meeting happened to be with Representative John Rutherford in North Florida. Again, I emphasize that we are nonpartisan and we meet with members of Congress across the aisle. And starting last summer, we met with all appropriators on Florida's congressional delegation, plus a few other key members near our national parks. And we shared this opportunity with community members that were interested in joining us. And during advocacy sessions like this, we focus on the importance of increasing funding, for example, for restoring the Everglades. We also focus on issues like ensuring there's clean water, ensuring that we can increase climate resilience for Florida. And we always make the connection back to how these issues benefit people. So through Everglades restoration, for example, we know that the Army Corps has said that this will bring over the coming years upwards of 40 to 50,000 jobs, quality jobs to Floridians. We also make the connection back to how this will help create resilience, not only climate resilience, but also resilience in our economy, which is very much tourism based and reliant upon our beautiful ecosystems. So just a few days ago, we saw a major win that is in part due to advocacy opportunities like this example on your screen here. And so that win that we saw just a few days ago was when President Biden released his fiscal year 22 budget request, which included a monumental $350 million for Everglades Restoration. And that represents the biggest single funding amount ever in the 21-year history of the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program. So this funding is also $100 million more than last year's amount, and it's huge in terms of the benefits that we'll be seeing as a result of this. And that funding will go directly to the U.S. Army Corps, and that will help for construction of key projects to advance flowing that clean water south through the system. And this is another example of a meeting that we held just a few weeks ago with staff of another local representative. This is new Congressman Jimenez's staff that we met with. And pictured here is a member of our Next Generation Advisory Council. She's the one on the far right. And she is just one example of the wonderful young people that we are so fortunate to engage with. We have a very active program of engaging with early career professionals, and maybe that will be a follow-up item that I can share more with you all about. But moving right along, I wanted to talk about how this advocacy work that we do is integral not only to protecting the landscape, but also to defending national parks from threats. And as many of you may already know, here in South Florida, we have 4 national park units, and they're pictured here: Big Cypress National Preserve, Everglades National Park, Biscayne National Park, and Dry Tortugas National Park. And all of these protect coastal and marine resources, as well as integral wetland areas that are crucial to protecting the drinking water supply, the aquifers below us that we all rely on for life. So while you may be familiar with these national parks, I often find that people do not necessarily realize that national parks are in need of constant efforts to protect them from threats. So I know that I grew up thinking that national parks were kind of already protected, but I'm now going to give you 2 local examples of why we need to work to defend and protect them. So the first up is the example, this case study is coming from Big Cypress National Preserve. So this image that you're seeing here was taken inside Big Cypress National Preserve several years ago, and it's an image of new seismic testing for oil that was done inside the preserve's boundaries in 2017 and 2018. There was legacy oil development in Big Cypress National Preserve that was carried out decades ago and is in 2 discrete locations of the preserve. However, in 2016, and then it occurred in 2017 and 2018, we saw new efforts to conduct these hunts for oil inside the preserve's boundaries. And I'll jump forward to January 2021. So after we saw those exploratory hunts for oil take place in Big Cypress in 2017 and 2018, just less than 6 months ago, we found out that the same oil company that did the seismic testing in Big Cypress actually came back and has applied for permits to develop industrial scale oil extraction in 2 different sites within Big Cypress, which is our country's first national preserve. So if authorized to proceed, this new oil development would be the first and only oil development to occur in a national park unit anywhere in the country under the new administration's climate forward agenda. So it's a major threat that rises to the level of a national concern, and it's occurring right here in our backyards. And so to help portray the gravitas of the threat facing this national preserve, we have this map on the screen here. And what you're looking at, I know there's a lot there, but I'll just point out that that red line across the center of the screen, that shows where the proposed oil access roads and new oil development would go inside Big Cypress if we are not successful in facing down this threat to the ecosystem. And the map also points out a number of the resources that are threatened, and those include all those orange dots. Those are Florida Panther telemetry data showing the threat to a federally listed endangered species. We see the threats to wetlands, and we also see the threats to another federal designation, and that is what's called wilderness eligible lands, which are within Big Cypress. So I will move on and tell you the good news, what we are doing to face this threat that is imminently looming over Big Cypress. So since January 2021, we have conducted a major analysis of the seismic damages done to Big Cypress, and that's what you're seeing on your screen there. That image was taken about 5 to 6 months ago, and what that line is on the screen there, that's basically a visible scar from the air of those 2017 and 2018 seismic damages. And through our analysis, we determined that there are about 110 miles of scarred lands inside Big Cypress. And so if you unpack that and lay those damaged lands end to end, that would cover, that 110 miles would cover essentially the distance across the entire southern peninsula of Florida from Miami to Naples. So we conducted that analysis, and we used it in our advocacy to write numerous technical comment letters. We wrote to the Florida's Department of Environmental Protection, to the Department of Interior, the National Park Service, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the South Florida Water Management District. And we also brought 100 other organizations and businesses along with us in those advocacy efforts. So what's the current threat status? Anytime this summer, we're going to find out very soon, hopefully, as to if the National Park Service will be releasing an environmental impact statement or an environmental assessment, and that will trigger a public comment period. So certainly stay tuned, as there will be advocacy opportunities on that. And the second and final case study that I'd like to share with you of a threatened local national park pertains to the marine and coastal conservation world. And that pertains to Biscayne National Park, which really anchors Biscayne Bay and is also right in our respective backyards here in Miami. So I don't know if everyone here realized, but Biscayne National Park is our country's largest marine national park. And it is about 95% water. It encompasses around 173,000 acres and beautiful coastal and marine ecosystems like you're seeing here, from seagrass meadows to coral reefs. It's just an incredible national park. Unfortunately, we also saw a severe decline in the health of Biscayne's resources over the past few decades, especially in terms of the health of its coral reefs and fisheries. And our growing population has led to a sharp increase in the sheer number of people using the park, including boaters and anglers, and this has led to overfishing and habitat damage. Now, climate change, which causes ocean acidification and coral bleaching, has also contributed to the decline of our reefs. And currently, live coral cover in the park hovers roughly around 3%, which is the lowest recorded level in history. Many species in Biscayne are overfished, and some are on the verge of collapse. So what have we done about this? Well, NPCA has been advocating for the creation of a marine reserve in Biscayne for the last 20 years. And what you're seeing on your screen here on the left is in 2015, the National Park Service approved the creation of a marine reserve in its final, what's called its general management plan. Now on the right side of the map, you'll see the chunk of blue area within the otherwise yellow boundary area of the park. And that area is only about 6% of park waters. You know, it's kind of equivalent to a postage stamp on an envelope, if you will. And that 6% is what the Park Service decided was needed to protect the park's resources by implementing a marine reserve. However, it remains in the park's management plan, but it was never actually implemented. And so NPCA is working to hold the Park Service accountable. And many of you may be aware that back in late December of 2020, NPCA filed a lawsuit against the National Park Service in order to hold them accountable for improving the management of Biscayne National Park, in order to see that marine reserve zone implemented and take other measures that they themselves had decided to implement, but have failed to actualize. So that wraps up my tour through some of the threats facing our national parks here in South Florida, some of the advocacy avenues that we are taking to address those threats. And I look forward to questions and discussion. I know that was a lot of information jam-packed, but there's so much work that we do in your respective backyards of Miami. So I welcome any questions and further discussion. And thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. It was very, very nice. Thank you. If you could stop sharing the screen, then I can see who's raising their hand or whatever. This is very interesting. Absolutely amazing what's going on. There we go. Okay. So we're open for questions right now. And if you have any questions or any comments, please raise your hand. And there, Dave Skinner. How you doing, Dave? Didn't see you get on earlier. Hi, Dave.
Wonderful. I just had something to add. I don't know if Dr. Abdo is familiar with this, with the club's 2 connections to Everglades National Park. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas's father, Frank Stoneman, was a member of our club. And if you're familiar with the Ernest F. Coe Visitor Center, there's a plaque out front that says Father of Everglades National Park. He was a member of our club. So we've got people connected going quite a ways back.
Wow, that's fascinating. No, I wasn't aware, and it's that's fascinating and wonderful to hear. You know, I visited Marjorie Stoneman Douglas's historical house in Coconut Grove for the first time. You know, again, I'm a native-born Miamian, and I visited for the first time just a couple years ago. So I'm still learning about her and her family's history with Everglades. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Okay, Tim Ryan, you had your virtual hand up.
Yeah, Melissa, I've heard there be a rumor that we're training alligators to eat snakes. Is that true?
You might be more in the know than I am, Tim. That's always possible here in South Florida. Anything seems to be possible. But in all seriousness, I've not heard that. What I have heard about how we are working to mitigate the invasive python problem is that they are increasing the use of what's called the Judas snake program. Are you familiar with that?
Not really, no.
So they use, it's not as fun as thinking about alligators eating pythons, I suppose. We could all use some levity, but the program, the Judas snake program, involves putting radio transmitters in male pythons. So when they go around to visit females during breeding season, the folks are able to track the routes and the areas that those male pythons visit, and thus increase detectability of the invasive python nests. Otherwise, detectability hovers around 1 to 3%. It's, you know, they're very well camouflaged creatures. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions there? I see the hands going up. Noreen, you always have a question.
No, I was wondering, we've been searching or exploring really the possibility of getting more involved with the coral reef regeneration. And I think that one of the things we talked about is actually doing a project, what they call a citizens science project, where we would go out and be involved in the planting of the reefs in the bay near downtown Miami. And I mean, I think Aurelia Begay, who's the new Chief Biscayne officer, has informed us of certain ways we can get more involved. Are there any other particular efforts that you see that are being undertaken now to help with the preservation of the bay?
Thank you so much for that question, Noreen, and how fantastic to hear that the club has already considered doing coral reef restoration efforts and has been in touch with Aurelia Begay. Coincidentally, Aurelia Begay is on the regional council for NPCA, and I was just online with her and other regional council members yesterday evening. So we are very connected to all things related to Biscayne Bay. And what I would suggest is that I'm not sure, since NPCA, because of COVID, we have not been as active in organizing events as we historically were. We're looking forward to doing that again come 2022, ramping that back up, where we may also have opportunities where we organize events where people can join with us to at times regenerate coral, more frequently help remove marine debris, including along the Maritime Heritage Trail in Biscayne National Park. So often there's lots of fishing debris and other sorts of debris that can be removed, and that's less specialized. So it can be often a more inclusive event because it takes less training to prepare for that. And then lastly, I would say that another avenue is that we are learning more about right now. I am in close touch with the newly established National Coral Disease Coordinator, who is based out of UF and funded through NOAA and Sea Grant. And this person, her name's Caroline McLaughlin, she used to work with NPCA. She's fantastic, and she has informed that treating and monitoring for coral disease, that there continue to be opportunities for volunteers to participate in that. So we're looking forward to wrapping our arms around what those opportunities will look like come 2022, and can certainly be in touch with you all on that. On that note, I will share sad news that we just heard. I think it was, goodness, only 2 days ago. We've been tracking the progression of the coral disease throughout the Florida Reef Tract. And previously it had not yet hit Dry Tortugas National Park, but just as of 2 days ago, there was a press release by the Park Service, and it has now hit Dry Tortugas. So I know they're going to be ramping up efforts, not only continuing efforts in the Bay, but also down into Dry Tortugas as well.
Well, thank you. And you will be hearing from us, because we would like to continue the environmental service that we've been doing over the past year under Robert's direction. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Marcia, Marcia, please.
Yes. You mentioned that we would be, well, it's in the budget, President Biden's budget, for a large influx of money for the Everglades. And you said it goes to the Corps of Engineers. I wonder how all that works with the state, and how the sugar industry and all the runoffs, all that stuff, it seems very complicated. And how do they, you don't want the money going to waste if the state's not going to step up. How do you advocate for that?
That's a great question, Marcia. Thank you. And it's, yeah, indeed, it's a very complex set of dynamics, set of players in terms of the nonprofit community that acts as advocates, as well as the agencies, right, that are implementing the projects. And so what I can tell you in a nutshell answer is that SERP is a 50-50 partnership between the federal government and the state government. So on the federal side, basically it's implemented by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, but we kind of think of them as akin to the contractors in your house, and the house is really owned by the Department of Interior or the National Park Service. And this is a bit of a messy analogy, but I think it's helpful in understanding how it actually works on the ground. And so the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers really needs to answer to the citizens and to the National Park Service and Department of Interior to ensure that those projects that they're undertaking are going to have the ecosystem benefits that they are intended to have on the federal side. On the state side, the state of Florida is actually ahead of the federal government in allocating funding, which may be a surprise to some, but the state of Florida has historically allocated a lot more funding beyond the 50-50 partnership. And their work is implemented here in South Florida. So the contractor, in my analogy, if you will, is the South Florida Water Management District. And the South Florida Water Management District is currently led by a gentleman by the name of Drew Bartlett. And under his leadership, we have seen really positive work done by the district to advance projects, to break ground on important projects. And our role in the nonprofit community, we work with close to 60 other organizations and really serve as one of the core coordinating organizations, so that different groups have expertise on different projects. For example, we want to ensure that people are closely looking at the engineering, the dynamics, the anticipated ecosystem benefits of these projects, so that the funding that trickles down and goes towards the projects can translate to the ecosystem benefits that we all want to see. So I hope that kind of gets at your question, Marcia.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Dave McManus, you have a question, David? Unmute. There.
That would help, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Melissa, you mentioned a few minutes ago that the dying off of the coral was extending as far down as dry tortugas, which I found kind of surprising and worrisome. It's understandable that's happening in the Biscayne Bay area because of the pollution and, frankly, too many people abusing the resource. But way down there, you don't have those forces at work. What is causing that to happen?
Thank you for that question. Yes, so way down there, what we're seeing as the immediate threat, there are two. So the first one is that I just mentioned a moment ago. I was specifically referring to the stony tissue loss coral disease. So this is the disease that started affecting coral. I believe it was 2015 that we started to see it really affecting coral, and it kind of started further north in the bay, north of the bay. And I can share next week, actually, for World Oceans Day, we're going to be releasing a map that shows this visually. So I'll be sure to share that with you. But what we've been doing is tracking how that disease is affecting corals and where it is. So that disease, scientists don't know a ton about it, but we do know that it has very high mortality, meaning it basically kills some of the coral species that it infects, the coral heads and coral structures that it infects, up to 90% or even 100% of the time after infection. So that is without intervention. There is an intervention that involves applying actual antibiotic paste to the infected corals. But what we're seeing in dry tortugas is that previously the disease hadn't made its way down there, but now it just has. It has made its way down there. And when we think about ocean currents, even though I am not a marine biologist, I'm not that kind of scientist, different kind of scientist, but we do know that, these are marine currents, right? It is traveling in the water. And so it was kind of only a matter of time, sadly, until it made its way to the dry tortugas. And then the other threat that some folks are surprised to hear that are facing the corals and dry tortugas is also overfishing. So although there's certainly a lot less population pressure there still is a great deal of fishing pressure. But the good news is that there has been a marine reserve set up in that area for some time now. And so that's just this tiny area where fishing is off limits, but then you have the fish populations have the chance to sort of bounce back and then reseed surrounding areas. So I hope that gets a bit at your question, David.
Indeed it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. I really want to thank you for participating and giving us an absolutely amazing presentation. We're going to be emailing you the certificate of appreciation. We really, as I said before, appreciate your attendance here. It's been very, very nice, fantastic. And we're also, I don't know if you know, we probably don't know, but we do a lot of different things. But last year we planted trees more inland. And this year we planted in Key Biscayne with Million Trees Miami. We planted 200 green buttonwood trees in the saltwater marshes there. And we'll continue planting trees as our next fiscal year begins July 1st. We're probably going to do 2 or 3 tree plantings. So when we do that, we will plant a tree in your honor. It'll have a little tag on it with your name on it in your honor. We'll take a picture of that and we'll mail that to you. So since, you know, environment is such a key issue and restoration, I thought you'd be pleased to know that. So we're going to be doing that as well. So thank you so much for being here. I really, really do appreciate it. We all appreciate that. You can tell by the amount of questions you got. It was very, very good. Thank you so much.
Well, goodness, thank you all so very much. And thank you for all that you do. That has brightened my day and probably my year, tree being planted. So thank you. And please do let us know when that will be taking place. Perhaps I can volunteer for you all too. So
that'd be lovely. We'll keep you in the loop and make sure you're aware of when we're doing our things. And I want to remind everybody, it's really easy to join the National Parks Association, NAPCA. What is it again? NPA. I can never get it right. You got to unmute yourself.
NPCA.
NPCA.
Yes.
Okay.
NPCA.org.
I'm a member of that. I'm also a member of the Audubon and all these other things. You know, I go a little bit overboard, but it's fun. But thank you so much. And in fact, I just got this really great prize from them, some bag, because I re-upped. So that was very nice of them. So now we're going to move on very quickly to Happy Dollars. And if anybody's happy, just raise your hand. And you can Zelle to Phil, 305-321-3847. Send a check, use PayPal, whatever you feel comfortable with. And Happy Dollars. Who's happy? Raise your hand. If you're happy, raise your hand. And there, Robin Shelley, how are you doing?
Yes, fine. Thank you very much. Yes, Susie and I are very happy today. We're going to give 10 Happy Dollars. And here's why. To begin the meeting, President Robert talked about June being Fellowship Month in Rotary. Well, why is June Fellowship Month? Because the Rotary International Convention is held in June every year. And where do you get the best fellowship in the world? Through going and attending a Rotary International Convention. Not this year, it's a virtual convention. However, during the virtual convention, which starts on June 12th through the 16th, there's an opportunity to register for the Rotary Convention in Houston, Texas in June of 2022. And not only can you register now, you can save as much as $250 off of the full registration price if you register between June 12th and between June 12th to the June 16th. Only those 4 days during the virtual convention can you get the maximum discount. And I have the key to how you do that. So if anyone is interested and seriously considering going to the Houston convention, very easy to get to Houston from here, no international travel or anything required, I can get you the maximum savings. Full saving, if you don't have any savings at all, it'll cost you as much as $675 a piece to attend the Rotary Convention, or I can get it for $425 a piece.
So that's a $400 Happy Dollar, you said?
That's
I'm teasing you.
Here's the point. If you save $500 a couple, you'll have more dollars to spend at Happy Dollars.
There we go. There we go. Okay. Who else is happy there? Thank you so much. Marcia Broad, you've got to be happy as can be. You're front runner on that Father's Day prize. I'll tell you, you guys.
No, we can always hope. I just really happy tomorrow I'm taking off with my younger daughter to go to Kissimmee for a weekend. Then our older daughter is going to come down and we're going to have a girls' weekend out. So it's the first time we've ever done it. Hopefully we, three of us survive it and have a great time in the meantime.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Okay, who else? David McManus. David, how you doing?
Real good. I'm happy because we just came back from a week's vacation in Marathon and enjoyed it thoroughly. Unfortunately, it left me broke, so I can only put in $5, but I'll send it to you.
It'll go good. Okay, who else is happy there? There we got Carlos Bonadillas. Carlos, ¿qué tal? How you doing?
Hey, how are you guys?
Very
I'm
good.
very happy. First of all, because I have to tell you guys that I'm really impressed with the kind of the speakers we've been having. This is great, and congratulations, Robert, and congratulations the whole team for making this happen. And the other thing is that I'm really happy about what's going on with the TBM scholarships. That is very